Hello, everybody. This is the archivist of Azthengar, the creator of the game Azthengar, and I wanted to kind of do something a little different. Nothing too polished or overproduced, just me playing the game and talking honestly and letting the footage run while I explain what this whole project means to me. I've recently lost my job because of, well, look at the economy and stuff like that. Now, this is not something I expect to say out loud in a video like this, but it is the truth. It happened, and now I'm in a strange place where one part of my life has ended, and the next part is still in the lurch. You wake up and the routine is gone. The certainty is gone. I came home halfway through the day, and now I'm just sitting on the couch making this video, and now it seems I have all the time in the world. And, it's a weird thing. It's weird. The thing you were used to doing is suddenly not there anymore, and you're left asking yourself a question, and that both is terrifying and yet freeing. At the same time. It's the question is, what now? For me, the answer keeps coming back to Azthengar. I spent so much time building this world that it almost feels strange to call it even a project now. It feels more like a place I keep, returning to, kind of like Cheers or something like that, where everyone knows your name. And then, that place that has grown with me, that place I was taking on more and more meaning than I ever expected. When I first started making Azthengar. Azthengar has always been on my mind. It's been on my mind since I was 13 years old playing Fatal Labyrinth for the first time. It's one of those games that it's more of a labor of love than being able to really make anything off of it. It's it's grown on me. It's taken on more of a meaning than when I first started it. Whenever times were tough, I always played Fatal Labyrinth when I was a kid. When shit always went sideways and you don't know what's gonna happen or what to do when you're a child, you kind of gravitate to that one thing that really kind of makes you feel, you know, human. And it's about what I hope happens next now that I'm putting my attention into the game full time and making this video. I don't know exactly where any of this is going to lead me, but I know I want to walk it, and I want to try to better myself and get a job, go back in the job market, and try to find something else. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just laughing because this is stupid. Being laid off, that's dumb. Whatever happened to the jobs that you had for the rest of your life? People are so expendable, and then people wonder why workers are so disgruntled. But anyways, it's at this point, it's not just a simple dungeon game. It's grown into a dark fantasy world with its own atmosphere and strange logic. The castle is still the heart of it, but the world around it keeps expanding. And that's what honestly excites me, because the more I work on it, the more it feels like the game is not asking to be finished in a small way. It's not one of those things where it's A to B and then to C to end the game. If you really wanted to, you could, because the game starts you off in the castle, and you could honestly jump in and have the time of your life and laugh and just kill the monsters and, you know, be the big hero, fight the Minotaur, then take on King Azthengar, and so forth and so forth. If you could play for 200 through 200 levels of chaos, go for it. But but I've actually, really really love the idea of games with survival and exploration within the atmosphere of them, and that feeling of being pulled into something much larger than you expected. You know, you can do whatever you want basically. I've been working on this part of the game, and I think it's really really great. You'll see it later on or whatever, but I've expanded the forest to include a tribe, to include an ancient graveyard where you had to go fight zombies and stuff. I think that's pretty cool. I like games that feel like they have a memory. That is that is something I keep coming back to with it. I want the world to feel things happened before the player arrived. There's always something fun about that. Just wandering into a place and out of nowhere something bad happened, and you're just watching the chaos unfold, and then people look to you as the outsider who could help them. I just keep adding to it, and not just because I want more content, but because I want the world to feel deeper. I want every new area to feel like it belongs. I want every monster, every bandit, every piece of text, every screen, and every sound, and or wave music file, and every little moment to feel like a part of a bigger myth. That is what this game's becoming, a myth that I'm still building. And further down the road, when the feeling and that level of progression is right, I will start the game where the player is all the way on the other side of the freaking world, and just being able to move, and just explore freely. I think that's the reason why I made the game like this, because I've always been drawn to games that leave room for imagination, like Fatal Labyrinth or what was it? Uh, Shoots and Ladders. I'm forgetting it. Fantasy Star. Yeah, that's it. Fantasy Star for the Genesis. You know, I love the feeling of playing something that doesn't have to explain every single detail to you. Something that gives you the mixture of atmosphere, danger, and mystery, and then trusts your mind to fill in the blanks. That kind of game stays with me. Azthengar comes from that feeling. Like I said, Fatal Labyrinth. It comes from loving old RPGs and old console games and strange dark fantasy worlds and games that honestly felt a little dangerous because they didn't feel completely controlled by the developer, by the programmers. They had rough edges, but those rough edges gave them character. They felt like they were made by someone trying to open a door into another world with whatever tools they had. That matters to me the most. I'm not trying to make Asgard feel corporate or clean in a lifeless way. I wanted to have an identity. I want it to feel handmade and homemade. I want the player to sense that there's a person behind it who cared enough to keep going. Even when things broke, even when systems had to be rebuilt, even when the work became frustrating. You wouldn't believe how many times I've reached a dead end, had no idea how to fix it, got really high, woke up, worked on the game, and fixed it. There have been a lot of frustrating nights, like tons of them. Like, oh God, I could tell you how hard it was to get music right, or how to incorporate the save file system because I sucked at that. That was awful, but it took me weeks. Working on the game part time and in my free time or whatnot. Being a father of two and a husband, and it just really hits you hard. The and that's just how the game has grown, piece by piece. You know, Losing my job has put me in a place where I have to look at my life honestly, which isn't easy. There is a practical side, of course, money to pay bills and all that jazz. But there's also a personal side, the part where you ask yourself, where I've asked myself when I got through the front door, what you actually want to do with the time you have. The part where you realize that waiting for the perfect moment may not make sense anymore. I've been working on this for a long time, often around everything else in my life. I would work on it when I had the time and the energy, when the day allowed it on the weekends, usually Sundays. Now things, are different now. For better or worse, I have all the time in the world. And that's scary because time by itself doesn't solve anything. It's still you still have to decide what to do with it. You still have to show up. You still have to make the work matter. So I have decided to treat this as seriously as I can in between looking for work. I'm working on the game full time now. That sentence is terrifying to me, honestly, because I'm scared out of my mind what the future holds. It means I'm no longer squeezing everything into it. But I'm still gonna give it all my all. Now I can at least, you know, focus on the website and making videos and updates and trying to search for a publisher. But the one thing I want to be clear with about Azthengar is that it's not going anywhere. It's still growing, and that is one of the reasons why I feel so strongly about it. I can see where it's going, and I can see the potential in it. I can see the world opening up more and more. When I play it now. I don't just see what is already there, I see what can be added. I see where the atmosphere can get stronger. I see where the player experience can become smoother. I see where the danger could feel sharper and maybe more inclined with the player's level. Um, just just that the part of the reason I wanted to record this kind of video, gameplay footage shows the game, but talking over it lets you show the human side behind it. Because this is not just a set of features to me, this is a world I keep building because I believe in it. I believe in the mood of it. I believe in the strange pull of it. I believe in the idea that there are players out there who still want dark fantasy games with personality. Games that aren't afraid to feel old school, not as a gimmick, but as a choice. Azthengar is not trying to be everything to everyone. Uh, it's it's trying to be what I want to make it. I want it to find the people who understand what it is doing, the people who like games with atmosphere, the people who enjoy exploring something a little strange, the people who appreciate a world that feels, you know, handmade and yet haunted at the same time. Those are the people I'm trying to reach. And it's really hard. So right now, I'm looking for a publisher. That is the big part of why I'm speaking more openly about the game. I know what Azthengar is, and I know what I want it to become, but getting it in front of the right people is a whole different challenge. Making the game is one thing, building awareness around it is another. I can build and write and revise. I can keep going with when something breaks, but I also know that the game needs more reach. It needs the right support. It needs someone who can look at it and understand that there is something here worth developing further. Not someone who wants to strip away an identity, but someone who understands the kind of dark fantasy experience I'm trying to create. I want a publisher who sees the potential in Azthengar's atmosphere, its expanding world, and its retro identity, and the fact that it is being built with real commitment behind it. You know, I'm not looking to make it bland or boring or anything like that. I'm trying to make it stronger, and there is a difference. I'm aiming for better polish and better presentation, and hopefully a better reach. Because that is the hardest part sometimes. You can pour everything into something, but if nobody sees it, it can disappear into the noise. I don't want Asgard to disappear. I want it to have a chance. The strange thing about this moment in my life is that I do not know if I should feel scared or hopeful. Most days it's probably both, but losing a job is not a small thing. It shakes your sense of direction. It forces you to think about what you're doing in life and where you're going, but it can also reveal that what has been sitting in front of you the whole time. For me, Azthengar has been sitting there waiting for more. I keep thinking about how many times I worked on this game after a long day, when I was tired, when I probably should have stopped, when it would have been easier to do something else, but I kept going. That has to mean something. There is a reason I keep returning to it. There's a reason I keep expanding it. But life does not always hand you the clean version of the story. Sometimes it just throws you into the next chapter and lets you figure it out while you're already moving. As you watch the gameplay, this is what I hope comes through. I hope you can feel the world taking shape. I hope you can see that Azthengar is not just a quick experiment or a throwaway retro idea, that it's a game with a growing identity, that it has heart. The more I work on it, the more I want the player to feel like they're entering a place with meaning. I want the game to feel more atmospheric and more dangerous and cinematic and just simply put it, more alive. I want the surface world to keep expanding. I want the endless nature of the game to feel meaningful. This is what keeps me excited. Even with everything going on, even with the fear of uncertainty, I still feel that pull. I'm not even going to pretend that this is some guaranteed success story because it's not. This is the uncertain part. This is the part in like a biofilm where they skip over 30 years and show you the ending because it wasn't really that great to begin with. Uh, this is the part where I'm trying to figure out things in real time, making videos, working on the game, talking about it more, trying to reach people, trying to find a publisher. I know finding a publisher It's like a 1 in a trillion mark, yeah, but that's the honest version. But I also think there is value in showing this part. Not just the polished announcement later, not just the clean version after everything works out. The the part that matters too, because this is where the decision is made. Should I stop or should I keep going? Most people would stop and hunker down and try to better themselves and and all that stuff. But I am still looking for work. Well, today, today I'm starting looking for work tomorrow because today's just a write off. And I'm gonna choose to work on Azthengar full time until I find employment. And I believe this world has room to grow. I believe there are players who would connect with it if they had the chance to see it. And I believe that if I do not give it the best shot now, I will always wonder what could have happened. So this is where I am going to leave it for now. This is my first real spoken word gameplay video for Azthengar. It's not perfect, and honestly, I think my voice sucks to be doing this stuff. Uh, I lost my job, working on the game full time. Looking for a publisher, that'll probably never happen. Let's be fair and reasonable. And I want to build something great. That's the truth. Azthengar has become more than a game. I work on it. It's become something of kind of like the lantern in the windowsill or the candle in the window. Just that holding out hope and memory for something good to happen. And that's about it. Seriously, I want to thank you all for being here at this point in the journey. I do not exactly know what's going to happen next. And I know that there's somewhere inside this game, somewhere inside this castle, these roads, these enemies, these strange places, the building up of endless darkness, there is something worth chasing. So I'm going to chase it. I'm going to see what happens. What the heck? So you can download the game on itch, link in the description below. Visit the website, azthengar.com. And don't stop believing. Always support those in need. And try to be better people out there in the world, okay? Until next time, adventurers, farewell.